What if your brain does not create consciousness in the way we normally assume? What if it is closer to an instrument, something that limits, organizes, or tunes a much larger phenomenon into the narrow experience you call me? In the 1970s, engineer and longtime meditator Itzhak Bentov developed a strange model of consciousness built around vibration, resonance, time, the human body, and an even more radical possibility that consciousness may belong to the structure of reality itself. Bentov presented these ideas most famously in Stalking the Wild Pendulum. On the mechanics of consciousness, his publisher describes his model as an attempt to picture humanity inside an expanded, conscious, holistic universe. And the deeper you go into his model, the stranger it becomes. But there is an important distinction we need to make before going further. Bentov's ideas were not established neuroscience. They were a speculative attempt to connect engineering, meditation, physics, physiology, and mystical experience. Modern consciousness science is still debating several competing brain-based theories, and Bentov's universal model is not among the established scientific explanations. So this video is not about proving Bentov was right. It's about understanding the extraordinary question he was asking. What if consciousness is bigger than the biological system experiencing it? And to understand why Bentov thought this was possible, we have to start with something surprisingly simple: a pendulum. The engineer who became obsessed with consciousness, Itzhak Bentov, was not approaching consciousness primarily as a conventional philosopher. He was a mechanical engineer with a deep interest in meditation, and that combination mattered. According to his publisher, Bentov spent much of his work trying to use mechanisms, physical analogies, and concepts from physics to make unusual states of awareness understandable. Where a mystic might talk about unity, Bentov wanted to talk about oscillation. Where a spiritual teacher might talk about transcendence, Bentov wanted to draw a diagram. And where most people saw the human body as a biological machine, Bentov became fascinated by the fact that it is also a collection of rhythms. Your heart beats. You breathe. Neurons oscillate. Your body moves slightly with every heartbeat. Sleep follows rhythms. Attention changes rhythmically. Nearly everything alive moves through cycles. Bentov began wondering whether these rhythms were merely consequences of being alive, or whether rhythm itself might provide a clue to how consciousness interacts with the physical world. That idea became central to Stalking the Wild Pendulum. But Bentov wasn't satisfied with studying the rhythms of the body alone. He wanted to know what happens when those rhythms become unusually ordered, especially during meditation. The body as an oscillating system. Imagine several musicians warming up independently. At first there is noise, different tempos, different frequencies, no obvious relationship. But then imagine that, gradually, those rhythms begin to synchronize. Separate movements begin behaving like one system. Bentov was fascinated by this general phenomenon of resonance and synchronization, and he used it as a way of thinking about the human organism. In his model, meditation was interesting, not simply because it made someone calm. He suspected that altered states might change the degree of organization inside the body's oscillating systems. That is an important distinction. Bentov wasn't simply saying meditation makes you relaxed. His question was closer to this. Could an unusually coherent biological system process information differently? Once you phrase the question that way, consciousness becomes an engineering problem. You have a system, you have signals, you have oscillations, you have information, and potentially, you have different operating states. Bentov's approach was unconventional. But this way of thinking helps explain why his work later attracted attention from people interested in altered states of consciousness. A declassified 1983 U.S. Army assessment of the Gateway process cited Bentov's Stalking the Wild Pendulum while building its own theoretical discussion involving resonance, consciousness, and holographic models. That document is evidence that Bentov's ideas were considered in the report, not evidence that the government proved his theories correct. That distinction is worth remembering because the internet often turns a government report cited Bentov into the CIA proved Bentov was right. Those are completely different claims. But Bentov himself went much further than physiology. What if consciousness is not only in you? This is where his model becomes genuinely radical. Bentov began treating consciousness not merely as something human brains possess, but as something woven much more deeply into reality. His publisher summarizes Stalking the Wild Pendulum as presenting an expanded, conscious, holistic universe. His later work, A Brief Tour of Higher Consciousness, went further, presenting a model in which the universe and human thought were inseparable. Think about the reversal happening here. The ordinary question is, how does matter produce consciousness? Bentov was effectively turning the telescope around and asking what if consciousness is already part of the universe, and biological organisms are particular expressions of it. This is why describing Bentov as simply another quantum manifestation, thinker misses what made him interesting. His question was much bigger. He wasn't merely asking whether thoughts can change your circumstances. He was asking what consciousness actually is, and whether our ordinary waking awareness might represent only a tiny range of what can be experienced. That is the idea I think deserves attention, not because it has been scientifically proven, but because of what follows logically if you entertain it. If consciousness is larger than the brain, then perhaps changing the state of the brain doesn't manufacture a new consciousness. Perhaps it changes what part of consciousness becomes available. The radio analogy, the easiest way to understand the idea, is through a radio. Imagine destroying your radio. The music disappears. Does that prove the radio created the music? No, it proves the radio was necessary for that device to translate and reproduce the signal. Now imagine damaging one circuit. The sound becomes distorted. Change another circuit, and certain frequencies disappear. Bentov's model is often interpreted in this general receiver, or transducer direction. The biological organism may shape or limit a larger field of consciousness rather than generating the total phenomenon from nothing. His own published work clearly presents consciousness and the universe as deeply interconnected, though the simple radio analogy should be understood as an explanatory interpretation rather than a demonstrated neuroscientific mechanism. And this produces a fascinating possibility. Perhaps different states of awareness are not simply normal consciousness, less consciousness, or more consciousness. Perhaps they are different forms of access, different filters, different modes of organization, different ways the same system relates to information. Suddenly meditation becomes more interesting. Dreaming becomes more interesting. Mystical experiences become more interesting. Even the sense of time becomes more interesting. Because Bentov believed our everyday perception was not a transparent picture of reality. It was a limited interface. Why time mattered so much to Bentov: look at a pendulum moving from left to right. At the center it moves quickly. At the edge of its swing it appears, for an instant, almost motionless. Then it reverses direction. Bentov used ideas like this to make the reader question something we normally take completely for granted: time. Our minds experience reality as a sequence: this happened, then this, then this. Past flows into present. Present becomes future. But does reality itself have to be structured exactly the way human consciousness experiences it? Or could sequential time partly reflect the limitations of the observer? Imagine a character living inside a movie. The character experiences one frame after another, but you, holding the film strip, can see many frames at once. The limitation belongs to the observer inside the sequence. Bentov played extensively with questions like these, using physical analogies to investigate the relationship among consciousness, time, and reality. His work was intentionally speculative and imaginative rather than a standard experimental theory. And this is where his ideas start intersecting with mystical traditions. Many contemplative traditions describe states in which time seems to disappear. The boundary of self becomes weaker, and awareness feels larger than ordinary thought. Bentov wondered whether these descriptions were merely poetic, or whether they reflected a change in the way consciousness processes reality. Where Bentov and modern science separate, this is where we have to be careful. Current consciousness science does not have an accepted theory demonstrating that the brain tunes into a universal field of consciousness. Modern researchers are actively debating several competing models, including global neuronal workspace theory, integrated information theory, higher order theories, recurrent processing, and predictive processing approaches. And even those established research programs disagree substantially. A major 2025 adversarial study directly tested predictions from two leading consciousness theories, global neuronal workspace and integrated information theory, and found that the evidence challenged important predictions from both rather than delivering a simple winner. That tells us something important. The scientific study of consciousness itself is unfinished. But unfinished does not mean every proposed explanation becomes equally likely. There is extensive evidence connecting conscious perception and conscious states with activity and interactions in the brain. Recent work continues to investigate specific neural networks, thalamic systems, cortical processing, and connectivity associated with awareness. So the responsible conclusion is not that science has discovered Bentov was right, it hasn't. The responsible conclusion is that Bentov proposed a provocative framework for a problem science is still trying to solve. And that is fascinating enough. The strangest implication now return to Bentov's original idea. Suppose, only as a thought experiment, that ordinary human consciousness is not the totality of consciousness. Suppose it is a restricted operating range. Then one of the strangest questions you could ask would be, what creates the restriction? The brain? The senses? Attention? Language? Memory? The identity you have built around yourself? Think about how little information you consciously notice even now. Your clothes are touching your skin. You were probably ignoring that sensation until it was mentioned. Sounds existed around you that you were filtering out. Your eyes contain information outside the point you're consciously focusing on. Your brain is constantly selecting, filtering, prioritizing, constructing. So even without accepting Bentov's cosmic model, one part of the question survives. How much of reality does ordinary consciousness leave out? Bentov's answer was extraordinary. Potentially, almost all of it. And whether or not his explanation was correct, that question sits at the center of nearly every mystery worth exploring. What is consciousness? How much does perception reveal? How much does it hide? And what happens when the normal filters change? The question Bentov left behind. Bentov's importance isn't that he solved consciousness. He didn't. It's that he approached the problem differently. He took the mind of an engineer, the experiences of a meditator, the metaphors of physics, and tried to build a mechanical picture of something that still refuses to fit neatly inside any picture. His books presented consciousness as part of a much larger, interconnected universe rather than simply an isolated product of individual human thought. Maybe future science will move even further away from Bentov. Maybe parts of his intuition will eventually look surprisingly prescient. Or maybe the most valuable part of his work is simply the question he forced us to ask. Are we confusing the limits of human perception with the limits of reality itself? Because if we are, then consciousness may not simply be one mystery inside the universe. It may be the mystery through which every other mystery is experienced. And Bentov wasn't the only person who suspected that ordinary consciousness might be only a narrow part of something much larger. Robert Monroe approached the problem from an entirely different direction and eventually developed one of the strangest theories in modern consciousness culture. Loosh. What Monroe actually wrote about Loosh is much stranger and much more complicated than the version usually repeated online. That's what we're exploring next in Robert Monroe's Loosh theory. What he actually said about human energy.